We'll have a show and tell, and I'd like to discuss projects that you would like to see at demos, at other meetings, and also for day-long workshops. That's it for now. I'll wait for the other stuff. So Bert, whenever you're ready.
I'm never ready.
I'll go for coffee.
Testing, testing. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. That's test number one. Now we'll test number two.
Oh, yeah.
You can still hear me now, I hope. Okay.
Hear your lips smacking.
Yeah. Alrighty. Is that loud? Is it too loud? Or not? Okay. Anyway, I guess what we're going to do tonight is we're going to take this, which is a cube. I'm at a disadvantage because I can't see. Oh, I guess I can. I can look at his laptop and I can kind of see where we're at. So we're going to take this cube and we're going to turn it into a lidded box. All right? And all of these, both of these parts come out of one piece of one cube. I'll pass these around so you can take a look at them. And then we're going to make one of those because that's it doesn't take as long to make one of those. This is a spin-off on the same design. It comes out of a cube. But you'll notice on this end it's bald. It's like a bald head, and it's got a contrasting box lid. So you're only limited by your imagination. Once you get the basic skills of working with a cube, you can make all kinds of interesting things, and people will ask you, how the heck did you do that? So how long ago was it, Ted, that we made these little cube drives? That was a couple years ago? So what we ended up doing was I was trying to make some things out of cubes and lining the cubes up in the headstock and the tailstock to get it perfectly centered so that the rings are the same size was a bit of a challenge. You can make jigs, you can do kinds of things to make it, but we came up with the idea of 3D printing a cube drive. And so we made these on a 3D printer, and they're 50 millimeters, which fits perfectly in a stronghold, or in this case I'm using a stronghold, but it fits in any standard 50 millimeter jaws, and so it clamps in there. And the idea being is that now you can put the cube in, and because there's three faces on here, three faces on there, it holds it nice and centered. Then the trick is how do you hold the other end? Well, on this end I made an adapter for the tailstock as well. You don't need it, but I made it because it made it simpler. If you've got a one-way live center, if you try and line up the point on here, you can kind of try and line up that point, but it's not very big, not very strong. You force it in there, it'll go off center. So one way you could do it is take the point out of your live center and just use the cone. And that'll kind of center it. Because this is being centered on the chuck and the cone is on center, it'll work. But I got lazy and didn't want to screw around with that, so I took one of my tailstock adapters, I put a nut in it, and I haven't used this for anything else for probably 8 years or 10 years. So I just machined the end of it to glue in another one of these little triangle pieces. So now I can put a cube in, and I can slide this up, line it up. And so now it's between centers, it's perfectly centered on both sides. Close enough for what I'm doing. I mean, we'll find out as soon as I turn it how close it really is. But it's worked fairly well for the ones that I just made. And let's Let's see, what else was I going to say about that? I think that's about it. I'll just get suited up here. So those of you that are in the front there, you'll probably appreciate plexiglass being in front of this thing. Because I didn't watch any of these, but something wasn't right here. I didn't launch any of these, but when you see it spinning, you'll see it can be a little bit intimidating. And the key thing to remember for making these kinds of things with wings on them is wherever you put your tool rest, you make sure that your hands never get on the wood side of the tool rest.
That's with any piece of wood.
Not with any piece of wood, but
Especially with this one.
with this one here, you definitely want to use the tool rest and keep your hands on this side of the tool rest. So, without further ado, we'll see if this thing will start.
Turn it on underneath.
I did. Is there an on-off button here? There we go. Okay, I don't know if you can see that on the camera, or on the, yeah, you can see it on the camera. You should be able to see the ghost image. Can you see it from the TV? You can see the ghost image in the middle. So, the first, can you still hear me? This thing is driving me crazy. So the first thing we've got to do is figure out a way to hold this in a tenon. So I want to hold it on a tenon on the stronghold chuck. And we know that that little cube thing is about 50 millimeters. So if I go in and I put a tenon on each end about that size, then I can grab it with the chuck. But I can do a little bit of work beforehand while it's between centers. I'm going to put the tenons on, and I'm going to start shaping the outside, kind of rough it to shape. And to rough it to shape, I'd like to speed it up a little bit. And you're turning lots of air, so you have to be able to look at the ghost image, and you're doing very gently until you find good. You're actually riding the dodo. So you might be able to see I'm starting to take the corners off there a little bit, and I've got some places here where I can start making a tenon. I can take this down probably another 1/8 of an inch, and it'll give me a little more purchase. So at this time, I decide which side is going to be the top and which side is going to be the bottom. Because what I'm doing first is I want to put a tenon on the part that's going to be the top, so that I can turn it around and finish the part that's going to be the bottom. But while I've got it between centers, I'm going to take a little bit of this extra meat off, and I think I already screwed up. So instead of this being the top, this will be the top and this will be the bottom. Yes, that's what it'll be. Okay, so I'm going to finish roughing this out a little bit, and we'll go from there. And if I wouldn't have told you I screwed up, you'd never know. So this side here is going to be the top 2 rings, and these ones here are just going to be gone. And with wing bowls, whenever you move your tail rest or your tool rest, you want to make sure you stop the lathe. It can get pretty exciting if you don't.
You don't need any red dye.
Yeah. And this tool rest is a little bit long, so if I was at home, I'd be using like a 4-inch one, and I'd be able to have the tailstock, the banjo in a little closer. This might vibrate a little bit, but we'll still be okay. So what I'm going to do now is, because this has already been decided, this is going to be the bottom of the bowl, I'm just going to go in here, make a bit of a tenon, and once I can hold it on this tenon, I can finish the bottom, and when I turn it around, then I can take the piece that's going to be the top off. What's that?
Your handle's coming loose on you. The handle? On your rest? Tool rest, the handle's coming loose. I just seen it going down.
Okay. We got to take this down a little bit more. Might go in a little bit with it as well. But thanks for that. Thanks for noticing, because a lot of times more eyes are better than just mine. Okay, we're going to see if I can grab this in this chuck. Now I'm going to make it a little bit, yep, I think I can grab it in the chuck. This is going to be the top. And it looks like it won't fit on that chuck, which is why I brought my other chuck. This one has sharp jaws on it, and so it's obvious that it's got more room. So now, with the sharp jaws, all of this part here is going to be able to stick into the chuck and won't interfere with registering on a round. So by just pushing this in on center, this flat on the wood is what's actually going to be supporting the wood, and the chuck is just grabbing wherever it can on the little bits of round that are there. Now that lets me get access to the whole bottom side. I can finish the bottom completely, and then when I turn it around, I'm going to make a tenon on here that is almost perfect circle to fit on this chuck with the jaws almost closed. And because it'll be on a perfect circle, it won't hardly mark the wood. And I won't ever have to come back to that side of the box. That box will be done. This out here because we don't need it anymore. Well, maybe I'll leave that on there so I don't bang my elbow against it. At home, I've got a golf ball I hollowed out, and I put a golf ball in the end of the tailstock so I don't have to bang my elbow into it. But I'll leave this on there for now. Okay. And we always turn it, and we want to be cutting about on center because we're going to do this with a bowl gouge. And we're just going to try and make a nice fair shape. And this is about the right diameter. As soon as I get this down to completely round about here, then I'll take the end of it off. Or I might take the end off earlier too. But I'll have to get a little lower to do that. And again, this is, it's not cross-grained and it's not it's not cross-grained and it's not end-grained, it's a little of both. So I typically use a bowl gouge for all the roughing, and then I'll use a spindle gouge, not a spindle roughing gouge, but I'll use like a half-inch heavy-duty spindle gouge to do some of the fine cutting, because it cuts just as good as the bowl gouge, and it lets me get into some tighter spots. So I'll go ahead and we'll rough the outside down. One of the things I like to do is I like to set the tenon. I like to know what the diameter is, and I know with these jaws, they're called 35 millimeter jaws, so that means that it'll hold something that's 35 millimeters when it's closed, but that's almost perfect circle. So I usually set my dividers to about 37 or 38, so it's just a little bigger than what these jaws will close on. And then I can look at it here and say, yeah, I've got to go in a little bit more because it's not quite, this isn't quite far enough in to give me the foot that I need. So that's cutting, oh, there's just a little bit of a flat there, so, and that's almost the perfect size. So by the time I move this up until I get rid of this little flat, that'll be about the right size for me to make the base. That's looking like it's just about the right size. Got to go a little bit further up because I've still got a little flat on here. So it looks like we have a nice round disc on here, and it's going to be sized so that it'll fit in the jaws. And because I don't want to come back to the base anymore, I've hollowed it out a little bit. And then I always like to put some kind of detail on there, whether it's just a couple rings. In this case, I just made a little button type thing, because if you look at the bottom, everybody picks up a bowl or a box, and the first thing they do is look at the bottom. So on these ones, I like to give them something to look at.
That's where you should do your laser.
Yeah,
Let's look at that.
yep, yeah. A lot of times I do. I'll leave a space big enough to put my my laser engraver logo on. So now you can see that we've got the foot is just about defined. It's still a little rough looking. I'm going to finish shaping this to get rid of these flats, and then I'm going to come back to the foot, and I'll probably use a spindle gouge to get in there and make this foot look like a little bead. Wasn't working because it's cross-grained on and end-grained, so the first cut wasn't working, so I'm switching to a full cut and a bit of a steering cut. Now just take really nice light cuts because I'm coming way off into the air. When making these, there's always lots of stop and start because, as you can see, we're just about done on the plots. So when I'm coming out onto the reins, I'm actually using my body to control the gouge, and I'm just transferring my weight and using the tool rest as a guide, so that I can, when I'm cutting air, I'm not pushing the tool into the air. So you have to get the feel of riding the bevel or shearing here, but keep the same angle when you come out onto these wings because you're cutting air and wood. And it's nicer if you can have the tool rest really nice and close. Gives you a little bit better control.
And turn it fast.
Yeah, let me turn fast, 2,500, 3,000. It's a small diameter, so it's fairly safe. And you get a better top if you turn faster. When you're doing spindle turning, you can just lay your tool on here and it'll spin, and if it's round, it'll make it smooth. But if you try that on here, I guarantee you it'll get exciting. We've got a little bit of a flat there, a little bit there, a little bit more there. So just a couple more cuts and we'll have the flats gone. Oh, we've got a little bit of a flat there. And these two are gone, so just a little bit here. The cube probably wasn't a perfect cube.
So can you do that with a scraper?
If you tried it with a scraper, you'll end up with a lot of tear out on the end grain pieces. It'll actually rip pieces out. So I'm using a bowl gouge with a 40-degree grind on it. They call it a 40-40 grind. and I'm actually using a shear cut. So it's basically, for all intents and purposes, what this tool is doing, it's acting like a skew because it's slicing the fibers, because I can't do a push cut on the bevel because there's cross grain and end grain. There's just too much movement. And if you try and do just a conventional pull cut, you're basically scraping. So if you'll notice, I got the tool down low, so the actual cutting action is happening on the full length of this side of the, I gotta be careful or I'll get some dye on the wood. But it's actually doing like a shear cut. So it's actually slicing the wood. So I'm anchoring the tool, and I've got the handle down against my body, and I'm just bringing the tool. It's like a skew, and I'm vertical skew. And I keep stopping and checking because I'm trying to maintain the maximum size of the belly of the bowl here. So I'm just about done here. There's just a little bit of a flap. There we go, now it's round. So I don't know if you can see in the base here, you can see where it's round, but it doesn't have a very good shape to it. But that's going to be my chucking point. So now I'll take my spindle gouge, because the spindle gouge is really, really handy for getting into these places like this, so it'll make it really nice and clean cut. So I'm going to put it here, and I'm going to blend the side into the base. And then I'm going to do a bit of a bead on here. And take a look at that and see what that looks like. So that looks pretty nice. It's nice and round. It's a bit of a bead. I've got a groove in there. This is kind of a nice profile. It's not too curved, but I'm getting the maximum amount of bowl that I can out of here. And now I know I'm going to be chucking on here, so I want to make sure that I cauterize the wood with a burn line. It actually gives it a black burn mark. Plus it actually heats the wood up and cauterizes it. So when I turn it around and grab it with the chuck, you hardly ever see a chuck mark. And wire burning device is just some piano wire that's mounted between a couple of blocks of wood. And you just put it on, hold it, and let the smoke out. So that doesn't look too bad. And at this point, turn the speed down. And I'll be really gingerly careful that I don't get my fingers on those points. I usually hold the sandpaper by the very end. And then when I'm holding with my fingers, I'm just pushing with my fingers here so they never get into the point. And yet the sandpaper can kind of get to the point. That's one point. And again, I hold it by the end, and I keep my fingers on the solid wood. And when I sand the point, I just bring this hand up a little bit, and sandpaper is pressing on the point. And I'm not hurting my fingers at all. Now, some people like the sand, so they'll go up to a lot higher grits. But this is oak, and it's a demonstration piece, so it's not too bad. There's a couple of tool marks on here. If I had some 80 grit, I could use some 80 grit and help get rid of the tool marks. But I'll try it with 120. I didn't bring any 80 grit with me. I should have. Knowing the way I cut, I should have had a whole roll of 180 grit. 40 grit. Yeah, 36 grit.
I got, I was luck on the 36 grit, so I know I can trade you in too.
Yeah.
That's
So-
finishing tool and you tool kit.
Yeah.
What's that?
80 grit.
Yeah. And then I use my magic sauce here. This is just my homemade boiled linseed oil. Boiled linseed oil, denatured alcohol, and shellac. And I don't put this stuff on when it's spinning because, for the same reason I don't sand. I can't get my hands in there with all the points in there. I can't get this stuff on really nice. I can do the base when it's spinning, but for the time it takes, I put a little bit on here. And basically, I never have to come back to that part. So if the finish is on, if you're making a whole bunch of these, you don't want to be going back and forth, back and forth. So now basically the outside of this is finished. Then we turn this around, and then we'll find out whether I was okay with my measurements. I love these shark jaws because they're dovetail, and the dovetail fits in that little burn mark groove. And if you'll notice how chucks are built, they're built out of one solid piece of metal, and then they slice them into quarters. And so if you can get about an 1/8 or 3/16 of a gap on this chuck, that's almost a perfect circle where the metal touches the wood. And so it'll hardly mark the wood at all. If it's too big, then the corners dig in and it gives you those little divots. And if it's too small, it's only catching on the outside lip. But this is not too bad. I got lucky, I didn't have to make a second one. So now, comes the fun part. We do the same thing again, only we've got to make sure that we take enough of this wood to make the lid out of. And so what I do is I'll cut in a bit with the bowl gouge just to kind of get it started, and then I'm going to use a parting tool and just part in and take this piece off. I part in with the bowl gouge just to give me a place to start with the parting tool. If I went in with the parting tool here right now and it doesn't have a flat face to kind of register on, it could get a little bit exciting. And don't ask me how I know that. And again, we want to be up in speed. So at home I usually have a better light so I can actually see. And so what I can do here is I can put something like this down. Put something like this down on here. Now when I look down, I can see the white paper and I can see the ghost image of the wood and I can see the points. I don't want to go into the points just yet. I just want to stay right here a little bit. And then we'll use the parting tool. Because this parting tool is fairly wide, and if I just went straight in, it was fine, so I have to give myself some room. seen a piece fly off?
Your piece.
What's that? Well, that's okay. That came off the top. That came off of here, that's no problem.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we'll still have enough to make it. Now I've got to cut a little more.
That's a
I'm not sure where that went.
Yeah, there you go.
Behind your foot, your heel.
There you go.
Oh, okay. So we got a piece of wood, and because that piece flew off, that's how big the lid's going to have to be. So I'll set that aside. So I just have to be conscious that when I'm making the hole for the lid, when I make the hole in the top, I have to make sure it's small enough that I'll have enough wood here to put in the recess, or make the recess. So now, we can get a little closer here. And so now this is the part where you'll get lots of practice at doing these. Because you want to be able to come in. This handle's a little bit long. You want to be able to come in and just nibble away at this, and nibble away at this, and get these points down to the thickness that you want. And then I always try and aim for a thickness of about maybe a 1/4 inch up here, and try and keep this a 1/4 inch all the way around. But I leave the center as a dome so that I've got a little more of a box. And we'll just see how that works out. So I'm down to about a 1/4 of an inch here, and I've got about 5/8 of an inch here, so I've got to start taking more out of here and leaving that cone. No, that's back up. Uh-oh, that might not have been good. Take a look and see if we have a design opportunity here. Oh, that's not too bad. All the catches were happening on the inside, so I'm still okay. I might not be going fast enough. No, that's a little better. Okay, so I got that back. Now it's a nice fair curve. I just need to take it down a little bit more in here, and I'm leaving a bit of a cone on here. And we'll just check and see if that's going to be small enough for this. Oh yeah, there'll be lots. I'll leave this here as the diameter that I'll be hollowing through, and I'll make this piece fit into there. It should be good. And when you're cutting with a bowl gouge, you like to be cutting at center, especially on something like this. You want the cutting tip to be on center, so it pays to spend the time to get your cutting tip on center so that when you're going in here, you're on center. And I always like to try and keep the bowl gouge jammed into my body. It's a little hard on this lathe because it's a couple of 3 inches higher on the wheels than I'm used to. But I still get it against my body so that it doesn't chicken wing. And then you have a lot more control with your body on the tool. When you're going in like this, you can just kind of swing your body and the tool doesn't chatter near as much. So I'm anchoring the tool, riding the bevel, and I'm bringing my body around. And so this corner that's in the bottom of the wings as I'm coming in here, doing that transition is almost like the bottom of a bowl. So you kind of got to be ready for it to want to self-feed. Ride the bevel, lift open the tool. And we'll just check and see how close we are for wall thickness here. It's about 1/4 of an inch, and we've got about 3/8. And this is still a nice fair curve in here. So I'm going to make another cut and try and get this part here down to 1/4 of an inch. Anchor the tool, ride the bevel, pick up the cut. Use your body to control it. You can see it's getting a little closer and closer and closer. So I'll make another couple of passes on here. This is oak, so some of this stuff here is chipped out. That's because it's a demo piece and it's oak that happens. If you had a piece of hard maple, it probably wouldn't chip out like that. But that's not a problem on this side because you can always take it to a sanding wheel and just push it up against the sanding wheel and sand those sides off. The part I'm aiming for right now is to get this thickness somewhere as close to this, just to make it look better. Anchor the tool, drag the bevel, pick up the cut. Let's see how it looks. No, it's not quite there. You could take one more cut. Famous last words. Anchor the tool, drag the bevel, pick up the cut. Well, it's not too bad. It could go a little bit more, but I think for all intents and purposes, you get the idea. I think I'm going to stop there, and I'll sand this a little bit. And that's what I brought this for. Is we don't sand these on the running. Break off the sharp edge, because it is razor sharp. And you can shape the points a bit if you needed to. You can sand the inside of these. If I had my little angle grinder power sander, I could, with a 2-inch disc, I could go in with a 2-inch disc and polish this up. What I think I'll do now is get ready to hollow it, and then we can switch over and make the lid. So hollowing on these is fairly simple. Again, you want to set your tool rest up so that it's outside of the wings. And you can tell how close you had the center cube, or the cube centered, when you're putting it on this way, because the tips are going past the tool rest. That's about 3/16. That's a little less. And that's a little halfway in between, so it's not too bad. But what we want to do now is drill it out. I don't have a Morris Taper 3.
That's a 2 with it,
No, that's a 3.
Yeah, that's a 3 in there.
But no problem. I can just use a skewer, a parting tool or something, or even a round nose scraper to. Yeah, I brought my hunter tool as well. I'm going to just put a divot in there so I can use my hand drill. So if the drill starts right, slow this down. Keeping your hands on body on this side of the tool rest is really important. So I'm just going to go in with the skew and just basically put a center mark on there. That way I can take my handy dandy drill. So this is just, I think it's a 1/4-inch drill, and I'm mounting it on a piece of wood. And I took a grinder and I ground some marks on here so I can kind of tell when I line up here, I can turn it and say, okay, this groove on here is roughly that far away from the center, so I know how far to drill the hole. This is the part that can get a little bit tricky, because you don't want to jam yourself in. You want to make sure that you know where you are, and you can rest on something. And so you're moving in with your body, not just your arms, because if this cell feeds, it'll pull your hand right in. But if you're anchored and you're just going in nice and gently, you've got all kinds of control with your whole body. Does that make sense? Hollowing with the drilled hole makes it a whole lot easier.
If you go all the way through, that's what you call the funnel, right?
Over the funnel box, yeah. And then I like to hollow with, I like to start hollowing with a spindle gouge. So this is almost like end grain hollowing. And I notice the hole's a little off center, so. And we like to be hollowing, we like to be right on center of the tool. There we go. These hunter tools are a small carbide, and they're, I forget what size it is, but I've had this for about 7 or 8 years, and I've yet to have to turn it. But I always keep the cover on it when it's not in use. At home, I've got an air compressor, so I generally blow the chips out of there with it, and I didn't even bring a tube or something, but I'm going to go in with the round nose scraper, I think. I used to think I brought a round nose scraper. Right here. Hopefully this scraper is small enough to fit in the hole. Yep. Well, we're just putting a mark on here so I kind of know where the funnel starts. If you leave a round little scraper when you go in on the center and start it there and sweep it out, then the bottom is always nice and smooth and round. If you just go into the hunter tool right on the very bottom, you'll always have a little bit of a pit there or something that you can feel. And now you can go into the hunter tool and come up the sides and just kind of gently slope the sides and blend in on the bottom. The other hunter tool is a little hook tool, so that allows us to get in right close to the lid, and you take this corner out. But the thing you have to remember with a tool like this, you can't be riding out here. You have to be riding on the shaft. So you have to relocate your tool rest so that the hook tool, when you're at the entry, you're riding on the straight part of the shaft.
Very important.
If you're too far in here, it'll twist on you. And but you can always go in further, but when you're coming close to the edge, you want to be on the straight part of the shaft. I don't know if you noticed, I moved my hand just a little bit up on top to get rid of some of the vibration. Because these shafts are so small, they'll vibrate, and if you take too big a cut, they'll really vibrate. If you can kill some of the vibration by just putting your hand on it. And I'm trying to just blend this in by feel. If I made that hole smaller, it'd be even better. Nobody could get their finger in there. But I can feel a little hummock right in the middle. But I can blend that little hummock in with the straight tool better than I can with the hook tool. And again, these tools are so small that as soon as you start getting over the tool rest an inch or two, they start to vibrate. But if you take really light cuts and hold your hand on the steel, then it gets rid of some of the vibration. you have to do it a few times, and you'll start feeling the tool, and you'll feel when it's smooth. Like this isn't too bad. I could have gone a little deeper. I still see the drilled hole is straight on. I'll go a little deeper and get rid of the drilled hole. Whoops. There's a whole bunch of chips in there. Okay. So, it looks like that's where I've got it. So, at this point, you go ahead and finish sanding. However you're going to sand, if you're going to sand it on the lathe, use your little drill with discs on it. You can try doing it by hand, but I guarantee you that you'll smack your knuckles a few times. So, I never ever sand these on the lathe. So again, with a trusty little boiled linseed oil, denatured alcohol, and shellac. Does everybody know where to get denatured alcohol in Canada? You can get it all over the States, but if you go to a store here and try and buy denatured alcohol, they'll look at you like you're from Mars. But if you want to buy 100% denatured alcohol, you can go to Canadian Tire or Home Hardware, not Home Depot, Home Hardware, and ask for smokeless fireplace fuel. They sell it by the gallon, and it's denatured alcohol. But they don't call it denatured alcohol in Canada. In the US, you get it everywhere, but
Usually up pretty high in the Canadian Tire service shelf.
yeah. But it's fireplace fuel. The stuff I bought was called NRG, for whatever reason, energy. But NRG was the brand name, and it comes in gallons, about $12 or something like that. I bought a gallon years ago, I'm still using it. It goes a long way. And this finish gives you a quick friction polish finish on small things. I like putting it on something like this because this piece right now basically is done. So that's basically the box done. Wall thickness is pretty thick. I didn't go as thin as I probably could have, but for all intents and purposes, you've seen how it works. So that's that piece. Now, we're going to see if we can make a... Oh, right here. Thank you. Now we're going to see if we can make a lid. And again, I use my, I try to remember to always put my covers on my hunter tools, because even if they bang against another tool, if it's carbide against some other steel, it'll chip the carbide. And they're expensive. I don't want to have to replace them. And like I said, I've had them for about 10 years and don't even have to turn them.
Now that you said something.
Now that I said something, they'll break. So I'm just roughly setting, I don't know if you can see that on the camera, but I'm just roughly setting my dividers so I have a rough idea of where the hole is. And again, I can put this on here and say, oh, okay, that's where this is gonna, that's where the tenon has to be. So we've got 1/4 of an inch of overlap, that's fine, we'll be able to do that. This might get a little exciting though too, because it's a little small. But we'll see. Okay. Good gouge. When you're using dividers like this, you always make sure you only use the left-hand point. If you put the right-hand point in, it'll flip up and make stab you in the face. So you only put the left-hand point in, and then you can line up the right-hand point with the groove, then you know you've got the diameter that you're looking for. And it's just a guide, so I know how big or how small to make the tenon. And then to make this tenon, I'm going to use a spindle guide. And we'll just fit it and see how it goes. That's not too bad. It's not too tight and it's not too loose. It's the first time I ever did that.
Yeah.
Okay. So now, I want to be able to hold this tenon. And I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it with that chuck. So, what I might have to do, I've got a center point on there. I'm going to put a chucking mechanism on here that's bigger than here, so I can turn it around and finish off the top enough, and make a finished topped handle that I can grab with a different chuck. So that's what I'm going to do now. Make a design opportunity. Like Stu said, if I had some glue, I could put that piece back on, but hey, we're doing a demo, so you've got to be able to demonstrate how to recover from a screw up. So we'll see how successful I can be. I think we'll be okay. We'll just try it and see if I can come up with a way to hold this. So, what have I got for a chuck? I've got this chuck here, so I might be able to put a spindle or a knob on here that kind of looks like a spindle.
What do you got for a chuck for the plugs?
No, they're too big.
Okay.
Yeah. If that piece hadn't flipped off on here, it would have been easier. But I'll see what I can do. It might have to be a little creative. It might not look as pretty as I would normally like it, but we'll try it. We'll see what happens. And so now I'm going to switch to a spindle gouge because it's smaller work. and I can get into the corners better. That might be a bit of a challenge. You might not be able to make it. What's that?
That's our dilemma. How do I hold this on the lathe?
That's always the challenge. When this kind of things happens, well, that's one of the things we have to deal with. And I think I know what I'm going to do with this one. I'm going to put a center mark on here, and I'll put it back between centers and then finish it off. So now I know I've got center on this side. I should be able to and I've got a center on that side, so I should be able to I thought I brought a safe drive with me.
When we look in the toolbox,
Yeah, well, I'm just trying to think if there's another way I could do this. That's too small. If I had another safe drive, we could do it. I'm sure we've got one in the toolbox. Any other questions so far? Perfect. I think, yep, that'll work perfect, Steve. Well, this might get a little exciting with this great big tool post. Okay, so I'm going to drive that in there. That is smaller than the lid, so that'll work. I'll put that in here, and the tailstock up. How many people have heard of a wood turner by the name of Steve Jones on YouTube? He's Wood Turner 21. He's a professional wood turner in the UK. I've watched lots of his videos. He doesn't say much on most of his videos, but he has a way of just demonstrating stuff when he's making it. I picked up so many little tips just by watching him. That's Wood Turner 21 on YouTube. If you get a chance, look him up. I tried to get him to do a live demo for us remotely, but he says he's a wood turner. He doesn't know anything about electronics. Okay, so now I know I've got this about where I want. I'm going to undercut this a bit, and then I can go ahead and finish shaping the top of the handle. Very, very light touch because there's not much pressure holding and dragging. I want to undercut this lip a little bit so that it'll kind of match the top of the dome here. And I want to see how much of the flat. Got to take it down to about a half inch away from the center pin. Okay, that looks like that's nice and round. So now we can just go ahead and make whatever kind of shape top we want. Now the moment of truth, that fits on there. I could probably adjust the angle on here a little bit if I didn't want it to fit. If the piece hadn't have busted off on here, I would have made the hole a little bit bigger, and then I'd be able to take this on and off the lathe and continue adjusting this to adjust the fit a little bit. I think this little lid here is a bit thick right here. It should be a little thinner. But considering that we had to do a design opportunity just to be able to turn it, the end's got a divot in the end of it. I could sand that off, or I could just leave it and call it a finished project. And what did that take us? It took us a little over an hour?
1 hour and 15 minutes.
Yeah, so when I did the practice run on these, the first one took me an hour and 15 minutes. And then I went back to read my notes, and I went back through a second one, which is the one I passed around, and that one took me 45 minutes. But doing it on my lathe, this thing is wiggly. This has got a great big tool rest, so I had to adjust a whole bunch of things I was doing that you probably wouldn't have noticed, but I had to do it because it's not where the optimum. But I mean, you can work with the tools you have. They don't have to be perfect. Just because I've got a whole bunch of chucks and stuff, you could do the same job, just change jaws. If you only have one chuck, you can just change jaws. Or you can adjust the size. I could have done it all by making sure every holding position was the size that would fit my chuck. Well, that limits me on the design of the box because you have to make the holding mechanisms bigger and it's harder to hide them. But yeah, any other questions? Yes, sir.
Is it possible to get those inserts that you made for holding the initial block?
I'm going to pass this to him.
Yeah.
Who else would like one? Who else is out there? Can you catch?
You need two to make it work, don't you?
You don't need to, but
Hold it, Bert. Are those the PLA ones?
yeah, but they still work. I've used them.
Okay.
So we're talking about PLA, and the blue ones are made with a resin printer. When you put them in a chuck, you just don't squeeze the shit out of them, right? They don't have to be super tight. They just have to be tight enough to hold it. And it is plastic. But when you're holding it on a cube, as long as this is butted in the bottom and the chuck is holding it around the outside, the pressure from your tailstock is pushing it in. All this plastic is doing is lining up the block, and you're only doing it long enough to get a tenon on. So, yeah, there's always a risk that something plastic could break, but it is what it is. So I got one left. Who is? I'll toss it back there. Okay.
Well, that doesn't break
So the next thing I got is I brought some extra blocks along. I know somebody who's going to want to try this. Yeah. So who else would like a block to try it? Throw that for the lady.
I'll catch it in my hand.
Yeah. You want to try one?
I didn't fix it. I need to make a system for it first, though.
Oh, okay.
Are those from Blue Post?
I'm not sure. This is oak and it's been laminated. It came from milling shops, so probably. So yeah, it's laminated oak, so things could happen like what happened to me, where if the glue joint isn't perfect, it can come apart, but that's part of doing it.
That's your design opportunity. Spring it next month.
And the whole idea with this wood is, it's practice wood, so just try it.
Yeah.
I mean, you can glue up whatever wood you want to make up a cube that's 3 or 4. Just try and make it a cube, 3, 4, or 5 inches. And if you do your own glue ups, then you know that the glue joint is a little more secure. But this is practice wood, so you do what you can. And I guess that's all I've got, Ted.
Thank you very much, Bert.
And I think, Ted, we're going to make some more of those too, weren't we, at some point in time? Yeah. So, if you,
There may be more coming.
yeah. Ted's got the resin printer, so he printed the last batch that we made a few years.
Will that do? Get right in there. I will. There we go.
So, show and tell. These are a couple of end grain boxes I've done. And this one has a little bit of detail in the lid. I'll try to get closer to that camera.
Yeah.
People see that?
Yeah.
Yeah, E-E-L-I-S.
Is that your rose?
So, well, that's a metal lathe that I've converted to do ornamental turning. It was a very easy conversion, I must say. So that's a lotus pattern in the top, and that's super easy to cut. It takes maybe 5 minutes. So this is, let's get in a little closer. So this is another little box with more of a netting pattern. And I cut that the same way, but because there's so many cuts with this little guy, that took about an hour. I just have to sit and watch. Brush off some sawdust. And then I put a walnut lid and base on it. So that's fun. So last year was a year of making tools and experimenting and all that, and this year is going to be a year of making stuff. So just getting wound up. Any questions?
What machine did you use for that? I missed the beginning.
I bought a little 1022 metal lathe about a year and a half ago because I wanted to learn about metal spinning.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, you know, this is pretty close. And I just happen to know a free program that'll do this. You just have to learn that. So I just had to connect the dots.
Free is good.
Yeah. Oh yeah. This program written by an engineer called Bill Ooms in the States, electrical engineer in Phoenix, has 250 years of ornamental turning knowledge baked into it, and it's free.
Yeah.
And hardly anybody uses it. It's unbelievable. So as I do little projects like this, I'll do some of them. I'll do a YouTube video and stick it on my channel, and then 100 people in the world have been doing ornamental turning, and they all have MDF rose engines and things like that. And probably you can number on 2 hands of people that are doing this. If I get 10 views, I'm happy as hell.
Jeff did another thing years ago. He made a vacuum kiln for drying wood. What would it take years to dry in the shed somewhere to dry the most of the and so we got a YouTube video and a dryer on intelligent woodturner skill. And Jeff constantly gets questions from all over the world about how about this and how about that. And I make the vacuum chamber out of the most rain barrel and things like that. And it's by far over 60,000 views of that video. So never enjoyed building something. Okay, what's next there? Other Jeff?
I've got some boxes. So I'm not going to be at your course because I have to work full time, but I thought I'd try a box this last weekend. This is maple, unfinished. So spent about 2 hours on the lathe doing that, and I'm thinking about embellishing it because it's kind of plain, but I don't know what to do next to make it prettier. So spindle turning, and this one is faceplate turning, so that could have been better matched, but anyway. We've got a small little dish with a nice little top on it, turns it into a box.
Very nice.
Great. Thanks.
Better start somewhere.
Yeah, so.
Thanks, Jeff. Somebody else want to grab your stuff and bring it up? Or grab something you like and take it home? While we're just waiting for the next bunch of stuff to come up, what I wanted to talk about is we have our annual general meeting in May, and that's when we do elections of officers and go through our financial statements. This May, my compadre over there, our treasurer, Jeff Sykes, Mr. Jeff Sykes, and I have our positions coming up for renewal, and we're both stepping down at that time. So if you're thinking of, you'd like to take on the treasurer's job, Jeff's done a miraculous job with it. It's a really easy system to figure out. All the software that you need for any of the positions is supplied actually by Microsoft for free, because we're a nonprofit society. So if you're interested in either position, get a hold of Jeff or myself. You probably have both of our emails by now, and we can go through what the job entails. Give that a thought. All right. You're not going to offer to pay anybody, Jeff, for your job?
Never.
Well, the other day I was over at Bert's and he said he was going to do this demo and he showed me what he was going to do. So I thought, I'd never done one of these, so I want to try it. So anyway, I got a piece of black walnut and I poked this out, and just to talk about design opportunities, there was a small crack in the wood and I didn't realize it. But after I started turning it, I thought I'd be able to clear it, but it went right through, so I had to come up with doing something with it. So the first thing I tried was I did some Lindenberg burn on it right through the crack, and it still looked kind of yucky. I didn't like it. Bert suggested to me when he had a look, he says, why don't you do some embellishing? Make a band, which I did, and I just started piercing it, and I ended up with, I think, a little better look. You can still see the crack, and if I had done it in black, I think it would have covered it completely and you wouldn't even see it. But I did it, and I use a leather dye for a lot of this stuff, and this particular one is a ox blood. I like the color, it looks good on the walnut, and like I said, the crack, it still shows a little bit, but I think it covered it pretty good. So, right along the same line as what Bert did tonight for a demo, that's what I ended up with on this. A couple of months ago, I was here showing off how to handle the flood coats. And this is one of the pieces that I had here that we did the flood coat on, if anyone here remembers. Well, this is finished up now with 4 flood coats, and front and back. And you can see there's some color to this. My second flood coat on this, I added a little bit of blue coloring that you use for the epoxy, just to give it a little tinge. I had no idea what I was going to come up with, but I'm quite happy with the color that I ended up with. And on the back, that's all flood coated also, but this is just clear. And again, this has got 4 coats on the back. So one of the parts of the discussion we had when I did this was, well, how many coats is it going to do? In flood coat, I've never been able to do it in 1 coat. I've always had to have at least 2, and in this case it was 4. And that's what I ended up with. It's a piece of box alder. It's just a scrap piece of a cut off of a burl, and that's what I come up with on it. That's it. This I brought to show Ken Houghton, but he didn't make it tonight. He gave me a piece of birch when I was over there visiting him one day a few months ago. He said, let's see what you can do with it. So I cut it in half and I spun this out and just threw some color to it, just random. And again, another flood coat. That's what I ended up with. So it's just a piece of scrap wood. It wasn't much of a piece of what he gave me, but I thought, what the heck, I got to try and do something. So there it is.
Oh, you don't need nothing. You can rent the thing.
I can.
Oh, okay. Remember who he is?
I know. Okay, I'm just reproducing again what Bert has done.
and there was an article in the woodworking magazine last Christmas, and I made about half a dozen of these because they made really nice looking gifts. So this is Manitoba maple, burl, and a Manitoba maple, the same thing on the top, and then a finial, and I use dye on the finial, and because it's a burl material, the dye gets distributed and looks like different colors, so it's a nice effect. Okay, you see it?
Thank you very much, Mike.
Okay.
Are we gonna have to look at 20 of these things next month?
Wouldn't that be great?
Wouldn't it? Let's just show and tell all the ones.
Are you going to get?
No. Oh, okay.
Well, it's not that often I get the chance to do this, but the show and tell table was really easy to. So I got through the photography pretty quick. So anyway, I love doing gnomes. Well, we don't call them gnomes, we call them dogs, right? So I thought, well, I had them on the mantelpiece, and I think I had like 23 at one time, just before Christmas time there, all sitting on the mantelpiece, and my wife kept saying, "Are you going to get rid of those?" And I'm not going to get rid of them, but I'll make some more. So a neighbour came over for coffee, and goes, "Oh geez, I'll take 18 of those." And I'm going, there is some fun to be made here. So she said, I'll take them. So she took 18 of them. Then I got to thinking there were some of them that didn't have holes drilled in the bases. And somebody here mentioned that it's better to drill out the bottom, it's lighter to hang on the tree. So I stuck a stamp on this one instead. And I called it a raised gong. And so it just sits on there instead of just sitting like this on a shelf. So, and I have no idea. I think Manitoba maple, and the wood the finish, I think, was hot, or what do you call that? Hot friction polish. Okay, so that's article number 1. Article number 2. So this bowl. Hey Bert, anyway, I went to Bert's one day, and his shed was open on his driveway.
Well, you
And
stole
as I
that
rolled
wood off, eh?
as I rolled up, this smoke rolled out. They're going, free wood, grab, go. Just like in rugby, just like a rugby ball it was. So I picked the darn thing and threw it in the back of the car. And this is a piece of now. I have no idea what piece of wood that.
You should give it back to him. That's his wood.
Well, no, we don't have it now. It's been modified. It's an ash? Okay, thanks, Steve. Anyway, so the finish on this, what do I do with this? The finish is tongue oil, and then I just buffed it on the lathe on a Beal system. Next item. It's wood. And this redesigned like 3 or 4 times, and I think Bert and Stu and I took it to them one coffee morning one morning, and I said, "Well, what do you think to that?" "Oh yeah, that's all right." Oh, and that was it. So I go home and I sat it on the shelf for a week or 2, and I'm looking at it and I'm going, and it came like this and came out like that, and I'm going, I don't like that. It's too much. So I hacked that off, and this is what I ended up with. I think it's willow, isn't it?
I think that is.
Yeah. And the reason why I like it, my wife won't let me get rid of it, is the 2 eyes here. This guy's picked on it right away. Say, it just looks like an owl. And I said, oh, when I got home, I said to Jan, I said, if I just put a beak down there, I mean a nose down there and a bit of a big, no, you don't touch it, leave it like it is. So anyway, this was finished with, what did I finish with? The teakot. Okay, and the block stayed on. Amazingly enough, the block stayed on. I kept gluing it with thin CA on the inside there. You can see that it started to lift a little bit there. I go, I'm not having that. Give it a squirt, thick or thin.
That's all you gave me.
Well, I've got two more. Excuse me, I've got two more items. Excuse me for 1 second. You know, I don't get to talk a lot. You know, so
Yeah, you're normally quiet.
so I'm doing pretty good today. So this one,
Oh, that's wood too.
yeah, another piece of wood, but this is from Barry. Was it Barry or was it Dwayne? Oh no, it was Dwayne.
No, where did you get that from?
Found it in the shed. And
There's another piece of wood.
it fell over, hit me on the toe, so I threw it in the back of the car.
You should check that shed out.
Bert's missing another piece of wood. Well, actually, this piece was like this long. I've got 4 of these out of this. And I've got 2 more to go. They're a bit small. But anyway, beside the point. So this is cedar, and it's it was originally a fence post. And who did it? Dwayne? I can't remember. It was Wayne. Sorry, it was Wayne. Found these fence posts somewhere or whatever, and he turned quite a few of them. Bless his heart, he's no longer with us. So
I'm smiling on you right now.
yeah. So what I did is I've heard about it's what the hell they call that, putty.
Oh, mill putty.
Mill putty, thank you. So I thought, oh jeepers, that would be a little easier than trying to pour epoxy into the rings. So milliput, I looked up, and the hardware store, the hobby store, John? The Great Hobby, is it called? Great Hobby, on 50th, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, on 50th, they carry it. And so I thought, oh, I've got a few of those. Now, it's quite fun trying to, mash that stuff up and then squeeze it in there, then leave it for like 24 hours, and you machine it off. The mistake I made was didn't do it on a very clean surface when I was rolling that milliput out to make long thin strings to encircle that. So I picked up all sorts of stuff. Yeah, I got different colours in there. So anyway, then. Can I just do that? So then I found this laying around. Well, it wasn't. It was a piece of soapstone, and I found it. I don't know where I found it. So there was 2 or 3 pieces of that laying around, and I'm going, ooh, I wonder what that is. So I said, what's that stuff over there? Oh, it's soapstone. Oh, okay. What do you use that for? Oh, embellishment. Oh, okay. So it fell in my pocket, and so then I machined it. Because I wanted an insert for this, because a big candle, a smaller candle, big candle, small candle, insert, beautiful job. So anyway, that's enough on that subject. I didn't steal anything else.
We know about.
My last name's Sykes. If you don't get that, look at Fagin's Tales. Okay, this I didn't make. My 8-year-old grandson, Samuel, made this, and now he's done a few turnings between 7 and 8-year-old John. Yeah, and I'm not going to get him to come up here, but all on his own, John. With your guidance. So John was overseeing him while he turned it, and I think he did a great job, just on the top of his head. And I think this is probably Manitoba maple, is it? Yeah. So that's it. Now, so thanks very much for your time.
Thank you.